Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew, and tonight I'd like to welcome back to the show author, talk show host, and the Einstein of biblical prophecy, Peter Kling. How are you tonight, Peter?
Chris, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure being back on your show.
Very good, and I appreciate you coming back. Thank you so much. We've got a lot going on, like you were talking about earlier, but it's been a while since you've been on, so I'd like to kind of reintroduce you. So let's just get a little bit about your background and what brought you down your current path.
Oh, we could do a show just on that. Yeah, it's kind of strange, the things that you find out by the time you're done with the journey. I guess the best explanation is that my family actually helped start the Reformation against the church with Martin Luther. Then Martin Luther and several other families all supported Luther and condemned the church, stood together. They hid Martin Luther while he was translating the Bible from Latin into German, just in time to be mass-produced on the Gutenberg press. And the genie was kind of out of the bottle because the average person on the street basically found out that the church had been lying to them, that the church had been extorting them, and they had been abused by the church because nothing that the church taught was in the Bible. Interesting. And where are we today? Here we are 500 years later. The wild thing is that I was raised really without religion. And my education in the scriptures started before I was 5 years old. I had some very fantastic mentors who comprehended what was written there. I was never taught dogma or doctrine. I was taught history and prophecy. And the interesting thing is that at the age of 9, I had a dream which actually came true. I had a dream. And I lived through the dream about a week later or so, and it frightened the heck out of me. But when I went for answers, I got the spiritual door slammed in my face, so to speak, which sent me down the path of science. So when I had this dream, I already had 4 to 5 years of biblical knowledge here. And now it was like, okay, well, I can't ask the spiritual questions, but I have to know how it was possible that I got to see the future. You know, that's obvious. Even for a 9-year-old, it's obvious that if you could see future events, that's a very valuable tool. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but how do you repeat it? You know, okay, tonight I'm going to have a dream about what, how do you program that? And at that time, this is 1965, thereabouts. I can calculate the exact date, October 29th, 1965. Anyway, that's when the actual dream happened, came true in real life. But it was a never-ending path. I figured if I would go down the scientific path, I could eventually learn enough to figure it out scientifically and how it's possible for us to see the future. Yeah. I did. But it led to a lot of other things, because combined with the knowledge that I was getting in prophecy and biblical history, and combined with what I was getting within the sciences, it was inevitable that one day I would put them together and realize that there's more science in the Bible than what we're comparable of or capable of comprehending. Let's put it that way. And to give you a quick example, Genesis, the 2nd chapter, verses 21 through 23, where God says, it's not good that the man's alone. I'm going to create a helper for him. And so there's actually a record of genetic engineering there, where a sleep comes over the man, the flesh is open, a tissue sample is removed, the flesh is closed, and then a woman is built from the tissue sample. Pure and simple genetic engineering 101. Well, maybe not quite that pure and simple, but it is genetic engineering, which leads to the next question. Okay, well, who were the genetic engineers, and who is God, or what is God? And now we have to look at the scriptures from a whole different answer, because that holy mystery just got solved by science. So what other holy mysteries can there be? And so, see, I became a scientist. I never became a minister. My majors were chemistry and biology, but it takes a lot more than just chemistry and biology to comprehend what's written within the scriptures. String theory, M theory, and superstring theory were a great help. Fractal science, it was a great help. Of course, is quantum physics. Metaphysics is probably the best. Metaphysics is the study of what is not quite physical and what is. And it's actually this comprehension of metaphysics, which allows us to see beyond the third dimension. Now, we call it the third dimension, but it's really the 10th dimension, because according to string theory, we live in dimensions 8, 9, and 10. We live in an actual 11 dimension. Some people will argue 12 dimension. The truth is it goes on indefinitely according to the mathematics, but let's keep things simple. The 11th dimension is the dimension of time, which is a variable across all dimensions. But for any of our 3 physical dimensions to be here, dimensions 8, 9, and 10, there first needs to be dimensions 0 or 1 through 7. We need an additional 7 other dimensions to exist so we can exist. So now we find out, okay, we are not just physical, but we are physical and spiritual, because you needed the other ones before we could get here. And so people who think that they're going to ascend to the next density, well, that means you're leaving planet Earth and the third density, which is actually dimension 7, 8, 9, 10, which means you're not really ascending, nor can you take any sort of a remnants of a physical body with you once you leave the physical dimensions. Kind of impossible. But it's funny. New Age people think that they're going to ascend. Then you got those diehard, come to Jesus again. I'm saved all my life. I've been saved. I'll tell you, if you ain't saved, you ain't never going to be saved. And so you better get saved now, because I'll tell you what, you can do anything after you're saved. You see, they all think they're going to be raptured. Wait a minute, isn't that the same thing that the ascension is? Well, once you're saved, then you get ready for the rapture. Yeah, Harold Camping taught us all about that, right up until he died. Well, did he die? Or was he raptured? I'm not sure. We buried a body, though, didn't we?
Yes.
So, people don't realize one thing. By Jesus' own words, he said, those who endure till the end shall be saved. So nobody's leaving the planet early. As a matter of fact, pray you don't leave the planet at all, because it is the meek who shall inherit the earth. Now, that there's a lot going on within politics today, as we know. People have been, turning on the news, and they're seeing these freaked out people, because what? The United States elected a justice? Oh, but he's going to stop us from killing our own babies before they're born. Wait, say that again. You want the right to kill your own offspring before they're even born. Well, if you would have prevented the conception, that would have been a much better idea, don't you think? Because now you're actually committing murder. And I don't care how you want to paint it, you're ending a life. So, and I'm not here to preach that one way or the other. I'm not the judge on this. Kavanaugh is. But here's the thing. Think how insane that sounds. I want the right to kill my own unborn offspring.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about is the insanity that some people have. It seems like there's a level of de-evolution on one end, and then there's a mass awakening on the other end. And it seems like this may come to a head. Is this something you're seeing as well?
Oh, of course. And Jesus predicted it would happen. This is what we're seeing as the separation of sheep and goats, the wheat and the weeds.
Right.
That is actually going on now. However, keep in mind that Jesus also said that the hand of every man would be against his brother. So we're going to see divide as this continues to go along. And this isn't, I'm going to shorten this up real quick before anybody says, oh, he's a religious fanatic. No. No, it's science. It's science. And you see, once you comprehend the science behind it, then you can put the rest of the picture together and start to understand it. Religion had nothing to do with Jesus, nor did Jesus have anything to do with religion. What? Well, yeah. Did Jesus ever said, I came to start a new religion? Nope. He was a Jew, and he was Jewish. He followed the Mosaic law. Now, what he did say is that I came to fulfill the law. He was the fulfillment of the Mosaic law. Hence, once he died and shed his blood, uh, the Mosaic law was fulfilled and null and void for my kingdom. I'm coming back to establish my kingdom on earth. May your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, or in earth as it is in heaven. You see, so when we get down to it, religion has nothing to do with it. Religion hijacked the message that's in the Bible. You see, and because religion hijacked that message, what we got was it now, and what's widely accepted is, the Sumerian texts. Oh, the Sumerian texts. Yeah, that's where these gods come to earth and they give us religion and government as control mechanisms over the people. And they have us mine gold for them because they're coming back because they used all their gold up. Oh, what are you giving me a cock and bull story like that for? Yeah, that's the law that you want to be under, the Anunnaki. Now, it's interesting. You go back to the scriptures, and it says something that we can really appreciate. It says that God said, let us make man in our image. It says that right there in Genesis, the first chapter. And then it goes on to say, and in God's image, he made them male and female. And then he gave us the earth, gave us dominion over the wild creatures of the planet, the birds of the heavens, the fish in the sea. It was all ours. Well, wait a minute. Where did it come from? You look at the record, it was all genetically engineered. It didn't evolve. It wasn't created in 6 24-hour days. Oh, what's God been doing for the last 6,000 years? Oh, he's been working on other stuff. Yeah, God runs on Earth time. Okay, whatever. And so you see, there's so much deception woven in with little bits of truth. And once we start adding science to the calculation, that deception starts to leave. And so that's pretty much why we're here and what we're looking at everything. And I look at this from a totally different viewpoint, not one of religion, but one of examining the scriptures through the eyes of science to see what we actually have there. And what we have is something a lot more closer to Star Wars than you're ever going to hear coming off of any church pulpit. As a matter of fact, they could take the Bible and rename it 6,000 years of alien involvement in human affairs, and it would be the same story. And it all revolves around what we're seeing happening today, because this is the culmination.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Anunnaki and how they had formed our laws and religion. Do you think that those same bloodlines are still in control today?
Oh, without a doubt they are. Without a doubt they are. And that was, there are some people that have, because of the history that we're given, there's some people that said, oh, well, you can't really trace the bloodlines back. Bloodlines, especially royal bloodlines, would have been kept at the Library of Alexandria, the world's most famous and complete library of its time. But, the Alexandria Library had a fire and everything burned. Not quite everything. You see, everything in the Alexandrian Library was captured by Rome and taken back to Rome and sits under the Vatican. And then they burned basically an empty building. So all that knowledge is there. So yes, they can trace the bloodlines. Something that was very important. And ask yourself this. We get the story of the Knights Templar. Now, these were really poor knights. They needed to, share a horse. Wait a minute. No knight is poor. The knight is a servant of the king. What's the king broke too? Well, in some cases, eventually that's what happened, because the Knights Templar essentially started to enslave the kings of Europe. And so now the kings had to deal with the Knights Templar financing their operation and the church. And so we get the story of Philip the Fair and the end of the Knights Templar. But let's take a look at the beginning of the Knights Templar. See, the Knights Templar is still credited for inventing our banking system today, or as I prefer to call it, the bankster system. And who controls the bankster system? The Jesuits and the Zionists. All roads still lead to Rome. So, keep this in mind. So now we get these two riders on one horse. You see, Knights Templar, the knights were knights of who? They were knights of the church. They were knights of the Pope. They reported to the Pope. Oh, so the church was poor and they couldn't finance the knights. And so no, it was the Zionists and the Jesuits riding one horse. Two riders on one horse headed in the same direction. Now, here's the thing. When they finally captured Jerusalem, they started digging. And nobody knows exactly what they found. Some people say, oh, they found the wealth of Solomon, one thing that pretty much most biblical scholars and archaeologists will agree on is that whatever the Knights Templar did find, it was mostly information. Now, the last people to occupy the Temple Mount would have been the high-ranking Jews of the year 70 CE, when the Roman General Titus, later emperor, when General Titus came and razed the city to the ground, he took the most important people captive back to Italy, back to Rome. He killed over 2 million Jews and took about 93,000 captive. And those would have been the elite of pretty much Judea. So the question is, you see, how did the knights know that there was something worth digging for? Well, who were the last people that were there? Oh, it was the elite of Judea. So then these must have been the descendants of the elite of Judea. So 1,000 years later, they go back, they lay siege to the city, and they take everything captive. They start digging. And what they find is most likely the ancient records, which would again have established bloodlines. So both you have the Abrahamic covenant bloodlines, and you have the bloodlines from the Anunnaki, or essentially they would have been traced from Egypt back to Samaria, but more than likely would have had the old Babylonian and Assyrian and Egyptian records there. Probably the records from a lot of other countries that would have been kept at the Library of Alexandria, which, as I said, is probably sitting under the Vatican now. So once you know those bloodlines, and people are saying, well, but this is a question I ask. Who keeps track of this stuff? The scribes? Think about it. There was a whole group of people in Judea, the scribes, that essentially kept the records. That they were mostly there to make copies of the scriptures or of the Torah and the different other documents that Mosaic law. They were the scribes. They were the ones who translated or copied the scriptures. But they would have also have been in charge of the records. And so they would have known who was from what bloodline. So yeah, those records are probably available. And there's kind of proof about this. We get a story that comes out of the Middle East. Allegedly, Jesus had married Mary Magdalene. They keep it nice and wholesome. He married Mary Magdalene. Very unlikely, because Jesus understood what he was sent here to do. He was sent to carry out a mission. Let's think of this. SEAL Team 6 is sent on a mission, and the leader of the team says, you know what, guys, I think I'm going to hook up with this gal over here and get married before I go complete my mission. Not likely, right? Not likely.
Yeah.
So you've got the most important person in the galaxy or in the multiverse that's come here to carry out a mission to save humanity. Actually, and it wasn't saving humanity. It was equaling the payment. It was a ransom payment because he had perfect human DNA blood. That becomes important as this discussion goes on. And so it was to repay the blood to keep cosmic balance, so to speak. But essentially, he paid perfect human blood to regain the future of planet Earth. It was perfect human blood that Adam had lost to the reptilians. Who? Let's go back to Genesis chapter 3. We find out about, the serpent. The snake in Eden. No. The serpent, as in reptilian. Let's look it up more that way because we have a different view of reptilians today. Anyway, in Genesis 3:15, which is the first biblical or the first prophecy, God says to the serpent, because he had deceived the earthlings, the Adamites, because you've done this thing, I shall put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. You will bruise him in the heel, and he will bruise you in the head. So that was the actual seed of what was going on. Now, the woman is not Eve. It's God's woman, or Father Yahweh's woman, which is the whole, essentially, makeup of the cosmos, which brings us to where we are today. And it's that seed which is in a lot of us. Actually, it's in probably all of us, the woman's seed. However, the serpent's seed is there too. So what we have is pretty much kind of a split DNA at this time, because after all, it's been just about, it's been about 6,000 years since Eden. It's been 5,000 years since the Anunnaki came here. However you want to look at it, we've been captured by off-planet entities that have created a set of laws which are, and just as Jesus said, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. Who is that? Satan, the slanderer, or devil, the deceiver. Those are what those names mean. We don't actually have the true name for this entity that we call slanderer or deceiver or devil or Satan. But however, there are about approximately 8,000 Satanists or Satan worshipers on this planet controlling what is happening. And that's where most of our missing children go to. And it's going to come out. This is all going to come out.
Yeah, there's a lot coming out right now, and the Vatican and the royal family is just a huge center of control. Do you think that empire is going to come tumbling down?
How do you bring down an empire? Let the children speak. Think about that. Let's take a look at a little fact here. And I asked a world judge about this just a couple of days ago. And I put this as theoretically, but to the best of my knowledge, the United States is technically under martial law. This has never been rescinded since the time of Lincoln. As I questioned this judge, I said, if that is correct, there has to be there's a catch. I forget exactly what it is, but if the United States is at peace for too long, martial law will automatically be relieved. Okay, so martial law would no longer be applicable. However, go look at the number of wars that the United States has been involved in since the Civil War ended. Now, since the Lincoln never rescinded the order for martial law, it's still active. And the war against drugs that was voted by Congress, that was Nancy Reagan's war, that's an official war. So is the war on terrorism. So the United States has been in a constant state of war for, since right after the Vietnam War. The Cold War was an official state of war. We went through World War II. Before that, we had World War I. Before that, we had the Spanish-American War. We had, keep on going back right to so we're still under martial law officially. However, we've been operating as a democracy. Now, let's break this word, democracy. How do you spell demon? D-O-M-O-N, demon, democracy? Yeah, but we're in a form of government that's run by demons. The United States is not a democracy. It was set up to be a republic, or a constitutional republic. It became a demon-run organization when it was incorporated. But regardless, we're still under martial law. Now, not only are we under martial law, but December 21st, 2017, Trump declared a national state of emergency as he issued the executive order for that day, which deals correctly with people who violate human rights and people who are involved in conspiracy, specifically those involved in human trafficking, pedophilia, and worse. And on the conspiracy side, anyone who has used the United States government for their own financial gain has committed an act of conspiracy. Ooh, hello, millionaire congressman.
Right.
Think about that. Now, why was Kavanaugh so? Why is there so much protest? Come on. The Democrats dug up this woman who, when we look into her background, has a family that's involved with the CIA. She's involved with MK Ultra. She's a professor at Stanford University, and she's teaching psychology, and she's been involved in right back with the CIA. Oh, no wonder they picked this woman. That's why I talk like a little girl, because I can change it. You know, like when I was really afraid, because I was 15 years old and I was at this party with all these big boys and they were all drinking. And well, what was your parents doing there? And why weren't there any parents at the party? Come on, you want us to believe this crap?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, where was everybody's parents? It was a drinking party. Yeah, a high school drinking party. Now, occasionally that might happen. But these are kids that went to private schools. These were kids that were washed over, taken care of, and made sure that they weren't going to get their lives too screwed up because they were being groomed for higher positions. Oh, I don't really remember the exact, yeah, come on, lady, get off of it. You know you were coached by the Democrats. Let's move on. Get the vote going on. Here's the problem. Go back to Lindsey Graham's interview of Kavanaugh, and that's where you're going to find why there was so much pushback on Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh was involved under the Bush administration, when it came time to classify enemy combatants, a U.S. citizen who goes to the Middle East and takes up arms against America. That's a treasonous act, and they are now enemy combatants, and the military has every right to hold a military tribunal, even though they are an American citizen, in order to deal with this person as an enemy combatant or as a traitor. Ooh. And so you mean if Kavanaugh, well, he is. He's now a Chief Justice who recognizes clearly what a U.S. civilian enemy combatant is, and that the U.S. military has every right under this previous law that was passed. And forgive me, I'm not an attorney to go back and recite the law. However, Kavanaugh can recite the law. Go back and look at the Graham interview, Lindsey Graham interview with Kavanaugh, and Lindsey asked him specifically about this law. Yeah. Okay, so that means anybody who is treasonous against the United States is now a civilian enemy combatant, or a treasoner, someone who commits treason. Can we think of anybody high up? Oh, well, let's see. Tomorrow the FISA memos is supposed to come out. Let's see if that sheds any light on things.
Right, and with all this going on, with all these accusations coming to light and all the truth that's coming out right now, do you think, I mean, they're not going to go down without a fight. Do you think that there's going to be some large-scale events in the future?
Absolutely. To what extent, it's difficult to say. If you want to believe the alleged scuttlebutt, there's been 17, isn't that interesting? 17 assassination attempts against Trump. 17. There's been a whole queue of assassination attempts on Trump. It's like people are standing in line or standing in queue. 17, isn't that interesting? But anyway, yeah, that's how many assassination attempts it's alleged to have been on Trump. Even the missile firing in order to take down Air Force One on its way to the meeting with the President Kim there of North Korea. So the deep state now, who can fire a missile? Think about this. Who can fire a missile? Who's got the authorization to fire a missile against Air Force One? And now you ask, is it going to be pushed back? Well, you got people like George Soros. You've got the Great Britain, England, and you've got Australia, both who are complicit in the overthrow of the Trump government, according to what's in the FISA memo.
Right. And
So,
what do you think about the whole Q phenomenon? Do you think there's really, former intelligence officers behind this?
I've wondered if it was Trump. But it's probably not Trump. But yes, right. Q is strictly propaganda. It's reverse propaganda. If Q wasn't there, think about how many people would be rallied around Trump. You see, Q keeps everyone rallied around Trump because what Q does by the Q drops is he gives the Anons little tidbits of inside information. I've been following the Q drops more so consistently over the past 6 months, but I started following them last November after I came back on the grid. And I look for different people. I listened to a few different people who gave their opinions on what it meant. But after a while, I started, coming to grips with who the players were, what's going on. It's like watching a soap opera. And of course, if you're just listening to the mainstream media, then you see this meltdown by the left. Now, here's the thing. These people who are at these protests have no idea why they're protesting. They're just paid to go protest. They have no idea, Kavanaugh's going to vote against us. We're not going to be able to get an abortion. Go to New York State, California, or Chicago. They'll turn around and they'll murder your kids for free. Whatever. They'll do that from now until time indefinite, or until those systems are destroyed. But as long as there's a Planned Parenthood in existence, there's going to be abortions. And I don't think that you'll see that come to the Supreme Court. I mean, they've already done Roe versus Wade, unless I'm just not following this. That now there are some cases that want to do late-term abortions, and you're talking about children who can literally be removed from the womb and live on their own. And they want to abort these kids? That's pure murder. So, okay, well, we'll let them live, but, as soon as they're born, we got to shoot them up with all sorts of vaccines. Yeah, so what is it now? 1 in 36 U.S. boys have autism. Why do more boys get autism now than girls? I think that's what the new number is, 1 in 36. 20 years ago, it was 1 in 1,000. How did that change?
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to do their new form of genetic engineering on us, starting at birth with our children.
Well, without a doubt, they absolutely are. And what they're doing is they're dumbing down the next generation. With all these different vaccines going in the body at such an early age, they have nothing but a detrimental impact on the brain. I look at my own situation, my grandchildren, and these kids have never been vaccinated. And you want to talk about some pretty sharp children, even the baby who's not quite 1 yet. Brilliant child, communicated early with him. I started actually counting with him at about 5 months old. We count from 1 to 10. His eyes would be right on me every time we count. And they still are. And I have normal conversations with the child. You know, they don't last very long. But you see an activity level with these children, and they're out running around. They're happy. They're healthy. They got these rosy cheeks all the time. You know, go look at a kid who's been vaccinated with every vaccine that's out there.
Right. And it's not only that, it's the assault on our food, our air, what they spray in the air. And now they have a cell phone in the hands of every child.
Well, here's the thing, a lot of people are fighting 5G, and we don't even have enough time to get in behind this. People will scream up and down about 5G, and then they'll sit down with their Wi-Fi blaring 24/7 in their house and not think anything of it. It's the same thing, only you can walk down the street. So if you're really concerned about 5G, shut off your Wi-Fi when you go to bed. Or better yet, hook up a cable to it. Yeah, now here I say that, yes, I have 5G and it's on. And not 5G, I've got Wi-Fi and it's on. And so, yeah, I'm getting all the benefits. But here's the other side of the coin. Our houses are wired, and everything in the house is wired for 60 hertz. And it's AC, so we're living within one big giant electromagnet. You want to feel real freedom? Go off the grid. I love being off the grid. However, my work is keeping me on the grid right now. So last year it kept me off the grid. It's just the reverse this year. So,
I'm
but
talking
that's okay.
more of the content in the cell phones that the kids are glued to instead of having normal interactions like normal kids.
Yeah, you see, that causes a whole nother situation, because now what we've done is we've limited the social skills. But not only that, there was a patent issued in 2002, and that patent was issued to control human physiology through monitors. So they can literally control our physiology, whether it's through our TV screen or our computer screen or our smartphone. Control your physiology. Yeah, you know, make you feel happy, make you feel sad, make you feel angry, make you feel like you want to go kill somebody, but you don't know why. You know, let's join Antifa, we'll protest. Yeah, you got these kids that spend all this time in front of their computers, and so they're all getting brainwashed. You know, so it's like, oh yeah, well, they don't know what the heck they're protesting, but they can join Antifa, and now they can bust windows and burn cars, and beat up people and get away with it. They can be bullies and wear a mask, and they're all going to wind up dead or in FEMA camps before long. Mark my words. But it's all part of an enslavement process. And it started back in the 60s with the Rockefeller Foundation supporting the women's rights bill. And it's not that I'm against women's rights by any means. If you're doing the same work, you should get the same income. But here's the fact: you look back at the families in the 50s. Most women stayed at home. A lot worked. Most women stayed at home. Dad went to work. Mom raised the kids. And then that paradigm changed, where we all had to go to college, get a college education, or we're going to just be dummies. We aren't going to go anywhere in life. You know, you can wind up being a plumber. Yeah, plumber. Guy's got his own business, making $100,000 a year. Got a couple guys working for him. Yeah, that'd be a shame. But anyway, especially now when they really need plumbers. But regardless, we were fed this paradigm. So what happens is we went to college. We all got a college education. So we went into business. And did women make as much as men? Well, yeah, eventually, but that's only because they paid men less. And now it took both husband and wife both working in order to live. And so, if the economy was good, we did well. If it wasn't, we didn't do well. And then we got hit with generation after generation. This becomes the way to go. You see, you grow up, you go to college, you get married, you get into business. The kids come along, they go to a daycare center. They're institutionalized, and we've institutionalized children for the last 40 years. Now, there's a problem when you institutionalize children, especially the earlier the child is institutionalized, the greater the effect. And the number one effect is the denial of love. Love and physical contact. The two things infants crave the most, mostly through physical contact, but it's that bonding. It's that actual bonding. And in that time, it's in the first 20 months of our existence, we are imprinted to the way that we are going to be for the rest of our lives. Essentially, our personalities are set up. By the time we're 5, 80% of our belief system has been installed. And most of us are running around with infantile belief systems. Trust me on that. That's why you see these snowflakes melting down. You see, they want to be part of something, but they never had the loving, nurturing environment when they were young, when they needed it the most, and it's created a whole bunch of mentally deficient people. That's the truth. They are emotionally disturbed, mentally deficient people who grew up in institutions and then sat their butts down playing Call of Duty or Miami Vice or what's that other one? Sin City. SimCity.
Yeah.
Sin City,
Yeah.
SimCity. What's the difference? Where you could turn around and blow up and rape, pillage, and burn, basically. And so they spend hours and hours and hundreds of hours getting to the highest levels, becoming the best experts, being programmed by these machines. And it's interesting, Call of Duty was developed by the military to teach tactical intelligence. And so now they put it out into the public domain. And for the last 20 years, children have been playing Call of Duty. And so by the time they do enlist, they've got, 10 years of simulated warfare experience? Think about that.
Now, do you think there's any way for us to turn this around with our children for future generations?
Well, yeah, but it's never easy. And our system isn't set up for it.
Yeah.
Number one, if you're going to have children, plan on mom or dad being a full-time parent and staying home with the child, becoming a domestic engineer. I promise you, nobody will love your child the way that you do. And there was actually, just to back up what I'm saying, I caught a documentary by the BBC several years ago. I was over in Ukraine. In Kiev was after the Orange Revolution, a couple of years after. I was there for the Orange Revolution, so yes, I've been in the middle of a real political revolution. Quite an interesting situation. I was there for a month in 2004, just about the whole month of December, but regardless. While I was over there on one of my trips, I saw this documentary, and it was with the abandonment problem, child abandonment problem that was going on in, it was either Hungary or Romania. There were over 40,000 children that were just abandoned. Infants just abandoned. Literally somebody knocks on the door and there's the picnic basket with the kid in it, or the laundry basket with the baby in it. And that's what they were doing, is just abandoning children. And so all these children were institutionalized, and because there wasn't enough, they grew up in an institution. By the time they started going through puberty, they actually became physical abusive. They would start abusing themselves physically, some even going as far as gouging their own eyes out, just so they could feel some sensation.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that. So that was, these children grew up in virtually a loveless world. Whatever little affection they may have had from their caregivers there, but essentially they were all institutionalized, and they became mentally disturbed, all of them, because they didn't have that interaction. And so what we have done is created 2 complete generations of children, figuring a generation is 20 years, since, actually I'm going on 3 generations of children since, everybody had to go to work. Now, why did women have to go into the workforce? Oh, so we could get more taxes from them. See, mom and dad are both working now that we can raise the taxes up on them. And they created this system. We are trained not to think. We are trained to want it now. You know, that's why Amazon does so good. 2-day shipping, you know, boom, join Amazon Prime, and it's on its way as soon as you hit the enter button. We want it now. But we're dealing with people who hand their knowledge down from generation to generation to generation to generation. I'll give you a good example. This is really kind of when it starts, 1815, 1816, right in there. Meyer Amschel Rothschild is trying to put together the first United Nations through the Congress of Vienna. The Rothschilds control the Bank of France, the Bank of England, the Bank of Germany. They were getting a foothold into the Bank of Italy, and they were also doing banking in Switzerland as well. But they controlled three of the largest European banks. And the problem is that they didn't control the Bank of Russia. And Tsar Alexander said, "You guys don't control me. I'm not joining your club. Adios, so long, goodbye." And Meyer Amschel Rothschild was so upset with Tsar Alexander, he said, "My descendants shall see your descendants wiped off the face of the earth." Think about that. I'm not going to wipe you off. My descendants are going to wipe your descendants off the face of the earth. What happened in 1917? Oh, we got the Bolshevik Revolution, didn't we? A revolution backed by Rothschild and Oppenheimer money. Crazily enough, the Rothschilds had about $60 million of Tsar Nicholas's money. Tsar Nicholas, as most people know, was the Tsar over Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution. And he and his family were murdered, wiped off the face of the earth. How about that? Financed by Rothschild and Oppenheimer banking cabal money. Using the Tsar's own money at that, to have him murdered. So that's the kind of people that we're dealing with. That was 100-year-old death threat that ended in not just the Tsar's death, but the overthrow of his empire and the oncoming of communism. And now in the United States, we've got essentially fascism. You look at groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. I thought all lives mattered, but apparently not. And I'm just the scum of the earth. I'm just an old white man who knows too much. So I'm just virtually the scum of the earth. I don't deserve to live. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All righty then. And
Yeah.
may the glory and love of Jesus find you too.
Yeah, we see a lot of backwards behavior right now. And I don't follow politics. To me, I don't trust either side. But I do see Trump as something different. He's a very interesting man. The way he's doing things is very fascinating. And one of the things that I'd like to close out talking to you about is the Space Force. It seems a very kind of interesting time to be implementing the Space Force, even though I believe the Space Force has existed for a very long time. What are your thoughts on this?
One of two things. There's been a lot of focus on Antarctica, and for anybody who hasn't figured this out, there are alien ships under Antarctica. Most likely, there's been the same Space Force going on down under the ice of Antarctica as there was in Area 51 and in Argentina. This was all Nazi technology. Remember, the Nazis set up New Schwabenland. That was before the war. After the war, the colonel who was in charge of their black programs, so to speak, but the UFO programs of Nazi Germany, he left, probably took Hitler with him, and the top scientists in the anti-gravity program, and went to Argentina. The FBI placed Hitler in Argentina in November of 1945. And then we also have Operation Paperclip, which brought a lot more than Warner von Braun to the United States. It brought in SS, Gestapo, and top whoever they could scap up, who are also involved in back engineering, reverse engineering alien technology. This is all showing itself here because it all ties right back into uh, to serve man. The Twilight episode. You want to know where 8 million children disappear to every year? There's an alien program going on. Keep the aliens happy, they'll keep the technology coming. Anyway, that's the short version of it. So yeah, there is a space force there. There's also, if you want to go full bore on this, there's most likely a genetically engineered army on the moon, genetically engineered army on Mars, and probably one or two under the United States itself. And we can look at the hollow Earth where there might be some hanging out too. Then they may be related more so with the Anunnaki, who might have set up base under Antarctica. There's more evidence of that and here we're limited on time, but it goes back to CERN and the Mandela funeral, which was actually a front for the signing of a treaty with Marduk, who is Anu. Marduk is the Babylonian name, and they may have opened up the portal to Tartarus. So there's a lot going on. There's the flip side of this. Oh, and by the way, it's alleged that the last lunar eclipse that we had, that one which was like the longest lunar eclipse it's not going to be like another 30,000 years since we see a lunar eclipse that's that big. Well, it's alleged that during that lunar eclipse, there was an Anunnaki, specifically Anunnaki, attacked the town in Siberia and took 24 people captive. It's alleged that all of a sudden portals were opening up just right there in the town, and these creatures were coming out, very ghoulish, very tall creatures, grabbed a bunch of people and left. The Russian military denies the whole thing. However, there are reports that the official story was that these people suffered a mass hallucination because of a chemical spill. They confiscated everybody's phone. But if you look at this, I went and looked at this deeper, and I came across an article that said that Putin declared war on the Anunnaki, and it was January 10th, 2018. So why is Putin declaring war on the Anunnaki? Maybe because Russia and the Nazis are still fighting and the Anunnaki are coming from Antarctica? Could be. There's also whatever happened with the solar observatory and a lot of stuff coming out of the sun. It's believed like a whole space force has come out of the sun, and the sun was a portal itself. But all the solar observatories got shut down, and the FBI got involved and hinted that there was a link to pedophilia. But wait a minute.
Yeah, or no, it was child porn on a
child porn. That's what
on a computer. So they had to bring in Black Hawk helicopters for that. Sure.
Yeah. And they shut down the post office too.
They shut down the whole town. Really, they had a section of the town evacuated.
Yeah, sheriff's like, what's going on here, boys? None of your business. It's child porn.
Yeah, sure.
Alrighty. So what's going on there? It's like those who know.
So with that being said, do you think there's going to be maybe a forced disclosure anytime soon?
Yeah, but not yet. That was one of the things that was on the Q board about disclosure, aliens and UFOs. Yeah. Right. The question is, it cuts both ways. Are we going to let or start a fake galactic war? And I want to just remember one of von Braun's famous words, the last card will be the alien card. So let's say we've got Nazi aliens, and we've got American aliens, and we've got Russian aliens, with using advanced technology. This opens up another show. But the interesting thing is we also have the Prince of Peace, Revelation chapter 19. The Prince of Peace is coming with the armies of the universe, or the armies of heaven, actually, which would be the armies of the cosmos, for that matter. But armies is plural. So this So the Messiah is coming back as the King of Kings. We don't know his exact name because within the name is also a meaning, and that name, while it has been given to him, it has not been revealed to us. Uh, for instance, Jesus, or Yeshua, more correctly, Yeshua means who is like Yahweh. No, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. Michael means who. The name Michael, the Hebrew word for the name Michael, is who is like Yahweh. Yeshua, which was Jesus' name in Hebrew, means salvation is in Yahweh. So there were different meanings. So Jesus was the salvation of Yahweh. Michael was the guy who was like Yahweh, but Michael is the interdimensional archangel. So, and very possibly the, quote, firstborn, or as in the book of John, he is called the Word of God. We may very well have, as I said, there's more truth in Star Wars than anything you're going to have come off a church pulpit. So either we may have wars with other biological aliens that were biologically engineered by other factions, such as the Nazis. Remember Joseph Mengele? His work was all in what? Cloning. All genetics. And so we can't take anything really for granted. And the whistleblowers have the people who are allowed to talk. And remember, the military controls the narrative on anything UFO. So all of these MUFONs and meetings in the desert and all those are all CIA controlled narratives that are going on there. I've had my own, what I would call contact. There's another show in itself. And let me tell you something. We are dealing with interdimensionals. We are not dealing with people that need spacecraft. We're dealing with demonic entities. We are dealing with very powerful, archonic, and demonic entities that paraded themselves as the gods once upon a time. The only thing is, we don't believe in God anymore, but we do believe in aliens. So, what do you want to give your power? See, if we were created in God's image, here's the thing. Remember, we got people being separated: the wheat and the weeds, the sheep and the goats. The children of the woman's seed and the children of the serpent's seed. Think of it that way. And the reptilian seed will be exterminated from planet Earth one way or the other. So whether it is by, my personal opinion is that these interdimensional entities will take the bodies of these genetically engineered aliens, and we're going to have a good old alien war. Think Mars Attacks without the comedy.
Well, that would be fascinating, but let's hope that, the good guys win at least, Well,
the good guys are going to win. At the culmination of all this, we've got one situation which is going to happen. We'll probably have a Nibiru event. And here's the thing. The Nibiru event will shut off the lights. Think about how many snowflakes are going to melt when the lights go out. Oh, the extreme left are going to be killing each other in the streets, literally, because they weren't prepared, because they're based on hate. But the people who are becoming aware, those who have a concern for the country, for each other, for their neighbors, those people who are upset about what they're seeing going on in the world, those sighing and groaning over the things that they are seeing, those meek who shall inherit the earth, they'll come together. They'll care for each other. They will show that, quote, Christ-like spirit, and they will be drawn together. And so we will work through the problems that we're going to be facing in the future. Jesus said that there would be no life left on earth if it wasn't for the chosen ones. But on account of the chosen ones, those days would be cut short. Well, who are the chosen ones? We who choose. So there you go.
Very well said. And I think that's a perfect way to close out tonight's show. Peter, I want to thank you once again for coming on. Always an amazing conversation. We're going to definitely have you back on again, and I want you to have a great night.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's always a pleasure being on your show. I really enjoy doing this show. It's a great format that you have, so I do appreciate being on. Folks, if you're interested in finding out more, you can always go to my website, peterkling.com. I'm not doing a radio show anymore. Interestingly enough, I found my publishers who were producing my show were Satanists. So I just possibly have found another publisher today. I am doing a show, or actually a program, with Alfred Weber and a wonderful gal by the name of Seven. She's from London.
Very good.
Gone quite a bit of attack. So we're doing a show together, and we're addressing the truth. We're bringing light into the world. So right now, the best way, you contact me via my, or you get a copy of Letters to Earth. The Future is Yours. I'll send you a PDF copy. Make a donation at peterkling.com. I don't care what it is, $1, $5, whatever you feel like giving. I will send you a PDF copy. Eventually, we'll have it back in a print again. And with that, I'm going to say love and blessings to all. Have a fantastic week. Until next time.
Thank you, Peter. You have a great night.
You too, Chris. Bye-bye.